Right, good morning. Without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And then we will start. Okay, can you guys see? Hopefully everybody can see by now. I am going to go to my desktop, or Blackboard rather. And the first thing I would like to discuss is after each lesson, we are doing chapters 1 to 7. Oops, don't know what that was. So chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, which is our theory component of the course. We will then be moving on to Microsoft Excel, which we will introduce shortly to you guys. And we can start having a look at the tools of the accountant. Okay, I mentioned the theory tests. If you have a look on the left-hand side of your screen, we will have here under formative submissions. Now, please be aware, formative is in-class assessments and summative is final exams or exams and assignments. So you will find your work under either formative assessments or summative assessments, depending on what we're doing. I'm going to have a quick look and show you that there are theory tests. So for chapter 1, which I'm doing today, and chapter 2, which I'm doing today, there is a theory test. To have a brief look at 1, I don't want to spend too much time on this. We have a lot of work to cover. We have true-false questions for chapter 1, which is nice and easy to answer. For chapter 2, we have a theory test, and we have some more true and false questions. So I'm going to go back to 1. You would click on your theory test for chapter 1 after we finished it today, and you would choose begin. Question 1, computer literacy, true, false. Question 2, data. Question 3, Michael Porter's 5 forces. I'm going to be discussing all of these today, so you can come and do the short theory test afterwards. There are a lot of activities in the Keynotes, which is going to work better if we were face-to-face. But we are unfortunately, or fortunately, or maybe half-half still online. And we are not able to do all of the in-class activities. Therefore, the theory tests take the place of that. If I go back into Blackboard, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Last week, we did digital remote communication tools. Sorry, on Monday. We are moving into Unit 2, which is MIS 10 today, and that is the 7 chapters. Why is it asking me that? Strange. Okay, if you have a look at the bottom here, there is chapter 1 through to chapter 7, which you would need to learn to. Today's work will be chapter 1 and chapter 2. If you go into each of them, there is the topics, your slides, your keynotes. Today I'm going to be dealing with the keynotes because they are shortened versions for you guys to understand, and they contain mostly the more important information. The textbook does contain a lot of extra text, excuse me, and I think students, there's a piece of advice I would like to give you today, and that is, if you make a textbook that is 50 pages big, I want you to think about, will you sell that textbook? 50 pages. Nobody's going to sell that textbook. Nobody's going to pay money for that textbook. So what authors do is they do what we call padding. They add a lot of extra information, which there's nothing wrong with that, but they add a lot of extra information to the key information in the textbook to make it, say, 600 or 700 pages, so that you can sell that textbook for a lot of money. And so what I'm saying to you is, a textbook, typically, if it is 300 pages, you are going to maybe have 50 pages there that are particularly relevant to your course. So you need to be able to differentiate between what is critical to the course and what is additional analytical studying. And yes, we do cover the whole textbook, but if you find yourself in a position of crisis, you need to start cutting down on the information that you are reading. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do chapter 1 and chapter 2 of MIS 10. I have downloaded the PDF already. It is on Blackboard for you guys. And I'm going to use a technique of highlighting in these. Let's make this a bit bigger so that you guys can see it and I can start talking. I am able to highlight various things there. Okay, do I have a highlighter? Read aloud, highlight, here we go. Okay, today what we are discussing, and it's the beginning of the course, and you need to think of this as in an accounting context. If you Google accounting firms in South Africa, you are going to come across quite a few, and a lot of them are very large. Now, these accounting firms are not just going to use computers, they are going to use analytical business systems like management information systems, MIS, CRM, customer or client resource management. They're going to use analytics, which you get predictive, and so on. And they are going to use all of these business systems. Please switch off the microphones.
Yes, guys, please turn off your microphones unless you want to raise your hand and ask a question. I don't know if you see at the bottom, you can click there on raising your hand so you can ask. But most of the time, please turn microphones off. Thank you, guys.
I will give you an opportunity to answer questions. Don't worry. You can also raise your hand. And I am going to take a 10-minute break between chapter 1 or module 1 and chapter 2 or module 2. Okay, and as I've been explaining, I'm going to highlight the relevant things that we want to pick out of the keynotes. So start with the keynotes, you move on to the slides, and then you move on to the textbook. Do not be intimidated by the amount of work we are doing today. The students did it last year. They were fine. They passed. They are in second year. You guys will be the same. So don't panic at the amount of information and the speed at which we are moving at. You come back, you have a look at the work. It's going to make sense to you. Under our learning objectives, and I know you guys can read, so I'm not going to read for you. There are 10 or 11 of them in chapter 1. Now, what I'm going to do is highlight as you would do when you are studying. So applications of computers and information systems, what do we use them for? And we will discuss this just now. There's a difference between computer literacy and information literacy. I want you to understand I am not going to give you any information you will not get a question on. I don't have time for that. What is a TPS, a transaction processing system? An example would be a bank or an ATM and a credit card. Then we're going to have a brief look at management information systems. The four major components, which is a very nice diagram in the slides for you. The difference between data and information. Now, I can tell you briefly already, data is unprocessed information. Information you can use. Information is what we have about you on our systems at the university. Data is unprocessed information. So if I say to you, for example, the number 10, it has no meaning. What am I talking about? I'm talking about, it could be 10 Rand, it could be the street number 10, it could be 10 tests, it could be 10 anything. It has to be processed before it becomes information. And then we can say the data would be 10 Rand. So that is the difference between data and information. Data is unprocessed. Information has been through an information system and it has been processed into useful information. This one, functional areas of a business. We will take a look at that. And then this one. Yes.
Sorry to cut you, sir. I say something because I can't hear him. I say something. Okay, I'm saying something, student. Can you hear me? Or can you hear sir? Because if you
can hear me?
Then I can hear you, sir. Then it must be the student settings.
Okay, then you need to leave and rejoin.
That's the big student.
Absolutely.
Okay, they can hear me.
Okay. Students, I think the most important part of these two chapters that we're going to cover, and that is competitive advantage. How are we going to use computers and what systems are we going to use to gain a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Now, when we say competitive, you will not be one company, you will be one of 100 or 1,000 companies, and all of your competition are doing all of these things to gain a competitive advantage. And they are using computers and information systems to do that. And we will take a brief look at that. The IT job market, yes, it's not too relevant to you guys because you are accountants, but you can go and have a look at what types of IT jobs are available. There will be one or two that relate to accounting, but not a look. And then the future of information systems. Where are we going with these information systems? And we're already there with Google and so on, using things like we discussed 4IR last week, as well as we discussed or spoke about artificial intelligence. An example of artificial intelligence is I was on the phone this morning to a bank and the computer asked me to speak to it and understood me. That is an example of artificial intelligence. They're very, very advanced information systems. Okay, so please be aware of in Module 1, there are 11 learning objectives. So when you're studying, come back to these 11 learning objectives. And if you can answer something about each of them from the keynotes you've learned or from the textbook or from the slides, you will be fine with any test. So The answers to these are very much give some basic information as to what it is, and then a justification and some additional information to get your marks. So if you just answer as of the textbook, you will get 50%. If you answer as of the textbook, and you also give me an additional reason why, or you give me an example, or you mention a company and how they use it, you will get your 100% for that question. So analysis and justification in an essay question is particularly important if you want to get the extra marks. Basic recall is only going to give you 50%. So you would want to come back to these 1 to 1, 1 to 11, and be able to answer it, or talk about a little bit about each of it. Okay, computer systems in daily life. I don't think there is much that I need to really discuss there. You guys know what a computer looks like. You know about tablets. So I'm going to take this, and I'm not going to do this with every single comment in this document. I don't have the time today, and I'm sure you don't have the time either for a 4-hour lesson. But here we have it again, competitive advantage. So I think you guys now get the point that we are using computers in accounting firms to gain competitive advantage, and any other type of firm as well. They include email, web browsing. I think we know what the internet is, what we can do with it. I'm not going to waste time on that. Computers and technology are obviously ingrained in our daily lifestyle. Okay, and then I want to worry about the terms, so I'm highlighting that. Information systems and information technologies. These are two different words that are used interchangeably. Information systems is much broader. My master's degree is in information systems management. And in that, we dealt with everything from programming to networking to databases to business to MBA type subjects. Information technologies is much narrower in concept, and an example of an information technology would be Sage Pastel that you will be using in second year in AIS Systems 1A or AIS 1A, Accounting Information Systems 1A. You will be learning about Sage Pastel and accounting in there. And that is an example of an information technology. Obviously, these things are going to help you be more competitive. This is getting old now. How many times have we read the word competitive? It must be 8 or 9. So when you think of everything that you're studying, think of how these technologies can make an accounting firm or any other type of firm competitive in the marketplace. What are they going to do with these systems to be competitive? Okay, these in-class activities, we obviously, this is for face-to-face. So, but this I can say is homework, and it's not for marks. The theory tests are for marks. So this would effectively be your homework or something you would like to do. And this is actually quite a difficult one to find out about how you can choose a company and find out how they make a use of computer and information systems. I think the most information you're going to find out there is about a company called Amazon. Everybody knows Amazon. Amazon is very big, and they do everything from, they started out selling books, and now they will sell you anything you like. They're a bit like Take-A-Lot, and they also are very involved in the world of cloud computing, where you do not have a server, you just rent some server space on the cloud. There is a discussion question here. Will online classes substitute the traditional class setting today? someday. What do you guys think? Can I just pause there and ask the question? Do you think we are to go totally online? Anybody? Mr. Pretorius, please monitor the chat.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm looking at the chat. So students, in what Smuts is asking, the work that we're doing now is an online class, a remote class, versus traditional face-to-face like in high school or before you used to sit in class. Do you think we're going to go back to class settings, or do you think we're moving in this way right now? There we go. We're looking at hybrid. Hybrid is a mix between the two, but I would still say 70% online and 20% face-to-face, but you're on the right track. Thank you, sir.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Pretorius, and thank you, students, for your input. Yes, at the moment, we are going to move from online to hybrid, which is face-to-face and some online. COVID has changed the face of the world forever. And then we are going to eventually go completely online. But I think during the duration of your study, you guys will have the hybrid method, where you would get your class online and then you would come into class for the next session for the week, and we would actually apply that information using the computers we have in the labs. So the sooner that happens, the better. We're just waiting for permission and lab space, as I mentioned last week. Okay, the following one, what will the advantages and disadvantages be? There are so many that you can mention, including problems with bandwidth and not having the equipment and so on and so forth. Have a think about that. We have two concepts here: computer literacy and information literacy. You would need to explain to us what is the difference between the two. Okay, computer literacy. It's very simple. A skill in using productivity software, and I'm talking about Microsoft Word that you type in your assignments on, spreadsheets, which we're going to teach you, a database management system. The one we are going to look at is called Microsoft Access. It's a very small part of the course, but we do look at it. Presentation software like PowerPoint, all the basic stuff that you're going to do with a computer. Information literacy, and I am going to highlight just one section here, that is business intelligence. What is BI? BI is such a big word. I have so many friends that work in industry, some of them for accounting firms as well, that talk to me about BI and business intelligence. Business intelligence is going to give you competitive advantage. And what we are looking at, and we'll go into more detail with that, historical, current, and predictive views. So we're going to look at business behind us, what is happening at the moment in the company, and what can we predict. So you can try and predict an inflation rate, you can try and predict your gross and net income for the next year, so on and so forth, market share, all of those things. So we have a very distinct difference between computer literacy and information literacy. And information literacy is directly related to business intelligence. And that will obviously give you, and I'm sure you're getting sick and tired of this, a competitive advantage in the marketplace. So we all use just about everything we are discussing today for competitive advantage. And we're going to look at the history of the company, the current things that are happening in the company, and predictive views. And I think the most important of those is predictive views, where you would want to know what's going to happen in the future. Be able to go to your boss and say, listen, next year our gross annual income should be the following if we do the following like we did in the past. And you would be using business intelligence software to help you do that. In-class activity, you know what, to be honest with you, an organization that has used business intelligence, everybody uses them. If it's more than 1,000 employees, they will be using business intelligence. And often these programs that are business intelligence are written custom for that company. And they will have whatever the name that they want to give it to. There is other software out there that you can Google. So just do for me a favor and make a note of this. I would like you to Google business intelligence software or BI software, and you will come across some information and look at how much it costs as well. Discuss the importance of computer literacy and information literacy. I think that's fairly obvious, guys, for a knowledge worker. They call it a knowledge worker. So that is an interesting term. Who will be, once again, competitive. I'm going to stop highlighting competitive now because it's getting old. Okay, all of this is competitive. The next one we're going to have a look at is something called a transaction processing system, a TPS. So in an exam question, we may not say transaction processing system. We may just call it a TPS in the question. And you would need to know what we are talking about. Okay, and these are used generally in companies. Let's have a look. Let's choose some words here that will be directly related to a transaction processing system. I already mentioned one is an ATM, for example. But you have simpler transaction processing systems within a company. And here we go. Record keeping, inventory control, payroll. It focuses on data collection. It's going to obviously collect information on your sales stats, on your turnover stats, on your income statistics, and so on and so forth. They can do that as well, but they are fairly basic systems. They don't often do the data collection bit. And they're talking about computers here to be simple can involve enormous volumes of data. And to be honest with you, students, this is why this course exists. When you graduate, you will be going and working for, hopefully, most of you, nice large companies earning a really good salary. And you need to be aware of the amount of data that is out there and why we use computer systems to automate human involvement. So we want to automate. We don't want to get rid of the human, even though that happens sometimes. We just want to automate certain functions. A function can be searching for specific sales data, for example, or searching for specific inventory items, so on and so forth. But I think the point behind this comment is the enormous volumes of data that you're going to deal with. And I would like you to think of our banking systems in South Africa. We have, what do we have? Nearly 60 million people in the country. Everybody has a bank account. Just have a think of how much information each bank has to deal with. And that is why they are using computers or mainframes or cloud computing, so on and so forth. Structured task, inventory control. You can just have a think about that. There's nothing particularly important there. I have explained it already. Discussion question. Pros and cons of transaction systems, TPSs. I'm going to highlight here pros and cons because it's something you would want to discuss. The pro is it helps make things efficient. The con is it can put people out of work. And that is something that is your unions don't like, obviously. So if you invest in a transaction processing system in a company, you are likely to put a certain percentage of your employees out of work. And people would need to change their skill sets in order to keep up to date and be able to work with these systems. The next one I'm going to discuss is called an MIS, Management Information Systems. And what is the name of our textbook? Management Information Systems 10, MIS 10. Okay, what is this MIS thing? Okay, it's quite an interesting definition. And I'm going to highlight the whole thing because this is critical. This is the name of our textbook. Organized integration. You've got your hardware, so you've got your computers, you've got your software technologies, you've got your information, you've got something you're doing with the information, your processes, and you've got your humans that are involved to produce really useful information. Now remember, I've already mentioned the difference between data and information. Data is unprocessed, information is processed. So I'm highlighting the whole of this because you would want to go and read that, for example. Take it off my video. I'm not going to highlight it for you and put it in the class. We don't want that. We want you to read the whole thing, which gives you the bigger picture of what I'm talking about. I don't have time in class to go through everything. But have a look at the first line. They talk about input and output. So a computer takes an input. It can be information. It can be something from a keyboard. It can be something from a mouse, as simple as that. And it will have an output, which could be something that you print after working on Excel. Then they talk about memory devices. I think you guys all know of flash drives. MIS software includes commercial programs. If they talk about in-house, it's a company developing its own software. Outsourced is when you buy it, like from Microsoft or whatever company. And then processes are methods of performing a task in an MIS application. I think focus on the word process. Process is processing information. So you have your data, which is unsorted. You will then sort your data and then you will process it to gain competitive advantage. And they're talking about the human element here is not accountants. The accountants will use this software, but we've got programs, system analysts, other types of technical personnel. Please Google those. Okay. In designing an MIS, I don't think at this level in first year we're going to ask you about the design of an MIS, but it has to be useful, which is what we are referring to. Choose either public or private sector and write a report on an MIS. No, you just need to know what an MIS is and give me an example. Discussion questions. Discuss the 3 tasks involved in designing an MIS. We might ask you that. If I go back to my things here, where are they talking about designing? Here we go. In designing an MIS, we go through a very definite process of number 1, you set the objectives, you collect and analyze your data, which is unsorted, and finally, information must be provided in a useful format. So that is effectively the answer of that question with an example of each, preferably in an accounting context. Okay, major components of an information system. I'm going to go through this quite quickly, okay, because they've given us the three components of designing the thing. Now they're saying what are the components of an information system. Now I've already explained some of this to you, so I'm not going to over elaborate. Data, unsorted information. You can get internal and external. So I'm just going to highlight those two words. Internal comes from inside the company. External comes from outside the company. Nothing more complicated than that. An example of external data is buying information lists from companies. One of the reasons the POPI Act came into effect was too many companies were using external data. They were taking your personal information without your permission. And I'm sure we've all had a telephone call from somebody trying to sell us something and they haven't had our permission. That would be an example of external data they got hold of from you. Let's have a look at them. Aggregation, no. Goals, objectives, success factors. Okay, so we are talking about the major components of an information system are data. The second one is a database. Now we go into this in chapter 2, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's known as a DBMS. And to give you an example, I can open my Microsoft Excel. I can open a blank spreadsheet. And I can start storing information in here like I would as a lecturer. Student. Okay, there is just some examples, and underneath here we would go and put all of that information. This is very hard to work with. If you think of CPUT, I've already mentioned we have 36,000 students. You guys are not sitting in a spreadsheet, guys. Maybe for each lecturer, because we have 140 to 150 students each, we can put your information into a spreadsheet. But when you've got 36,000, it just becomes too big. You can't work with this. It's not possible, or it is too time consuming. So therefore, we are going to use something called a database, which basically has in it tables which look like spreadsheets, which are related to each other. And the information will go through a registration program, and it will then go and be stored in the database for quick retrieval. Third one is a process. Let's keep it simple. It generates information. As simple as that. That's what a process is. So it will take the data you put in, all of the students' information, and it will generate the most useful type of information. For example, how many students we have registered in what faculty. The third one, or the fourth one, sorry, is information. It is the output of a information system. Any type of TPS, any type of MIS, any type of BI, information is the output. And we are, to just remind you, we are dealing with the major components of an information system. So I'm going to highlight that. There is 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 major components of an information system. Now, I do recall from last year when my students were answering questions, you're not reading enough, or they weren't reading enough, because I asked for the 4 components of an information system, and you see 4 things here, and you go and put that down as an answer. No, that is incorrect. This is the quality of information, how useful it is to others, and the qualities of useful information. So information can be rubbish, or it can be useful, something that you can use. Timeliness, when does it come from? The past, present, or future? How does it integrate with other information? Is it relevant? For example, you will have your name, and integrated to that is your address, integrated to that is your student number, integrated to that is your courses. Consistency and accuracy. If it is not accurate, then again it is rubbish. There's something we call GIGO, G-I-G-O, which is garbage in, garbage out. And that is a term used in the computer industry. If you are going to feed garbage into a computer, it will only spit out garbage. And that is something that we don't want. And then relevance. You don't want to store any information that is not relevant to what you are working with. Otherwise, you are storing extra information. If it lacks any of these qualities, you're going to make incorrect decisions. You will misallocate stuff, so on and so forth. Okay, so there are your 4 components of an information system. Examples of information systems, I can go a little bit quicker here. I think database is an example of an information system. So one would be a DBMS, Microsoft Access. Oracle is one. I think go have a look at those 2. Microsoft SQL Server, all examples of DBMSs. We will cover this in chapter 2. Example 2, Teletech, an international textile company, uses a database again. So they're pushing database here under examples of information systems. And they've only put 2 there, database and database. So in here, you may add there a TPS and a MIS. That's also an example of an information system. In fact, under this answer, you could put just about anything and you will get it right. In-class activity, 4 teams. A component of an information system. Remember, we had 4 components we've just covered. So you can just think about that. Distinguish information from data. I've done this over and over and over now in this lesson today. I'm not going to mention it again. Information is processed, data is not processed. Using information systems and technologies. Very simple. You're going to collect data or type in something. You're going to process the collected data and you will deliver information using different information technologies. They're talking here about computer networks. Mr. Pretorius, are we going to have any questions on these?
Sir, not really, but here is a question here, sir. What's the difference between business intelligence and accounting software? Accounting software, student, is something that you install on your PC or laptop. Intelligence part is, how can I say, as Ms. Smuts is saying, retrieving valuable information and comparing it to rough, raw data. Because business does not only apply in accounting, business applies in marketing, in accounting, in retail, in all sectors and industries. Accounting software is a specified software installed like Pastel. For example, payroll is a specified software pertaining to accounting only. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think Pastel is a very small part of business intelligence. Business intelligence is the big software. If you talk about business intelligence is not actually a piece of software. It is the result of a piece of software.
So that's correct.
Have a think about that. Okay, the importance of information systems. I think any student can answer this after their own. I expect you to do some reading. They go right down to things like a personnel information system, human resources information system, web technologies. These are all the importance of information systems. There are many generic answers under here that you can use to get right. Using these things for competitive advantage. Okay, here we are getting a little bit to the nitty-gritty of this chapter. I'm going to highlight, Michael Porter, a professor at Harvard Business School. You will get Porter's this and Porter's that and Porter's something else. He's identified 3 strategies for being competitive. Cost leadership, differentiation, that is being different from your competitors, having something special that you offer, and focus, being very specific on what you are offering. Okay, and then they talk about gaining competitive advantage. I would highlight this whole thing here. And I'm going to do so. Because we're talking about competitive advantage. So you will reduce the cost of products. You can produce strategy. They're talking about different levels of strategy. You won't be asked that question. You try and make your products and services different, as I've mentioned. And then this one, students, absolutely, this one will come up in your tests and your exams. Porter, who we spoke about here, a professor at Harvard Business School, came up with a 5 forces model. I'm going to pause there for a second because I'm going back, my memory is going back to last year. And this question was the one question that most of the students got incorrect. We asked, what are the components of the 5 forces model? And I got something else altogether. And that was very sad for me to take away those marks from the students because they did not get that 5 correct. It's very clearly labeled out here. And in the slideshow, which I will just very quickly go through at the end of the class, I only want to look at the pictures. They are saying what the notes are saying in the slides effectively. But in the slides, what is very useful there are the pictures and the diagrams of the 5 forces model. And we will have a look at that diagram later to elaborate on this. But it's buyer power, supplier power, the threat of substitute products or services, can be from your competitors, threat of new entrants into the market, startup companies, rivalry amongst existing competitors. I'll tell you one place where there is a lot of rivalry. Potato chips. We have 2 manufacturers. We have Simba and we have Willard. Willards. They are both very, very large companies, and they will both be checking out each other's products and using things like Porter's Five Forces model to understand what's going on within their company and how they can be competitive. Okay, I'm not going to go through each of the buyer power, supplier power, threat of new entrants. I don't think you're going to be asked to discuss that specifically in a question at this level. Okay, so at first year level, we would want to know what are the components of the Five Forces model. Not necessarily would we like you to actually explain each of the five forces. It is too much. It's too much work to learn, and it's not really at first year level. It is at second or third year level. So just be aware of the five forces. Let's move on. So be aware. Michael Porter has 3 strategies and a 5-force model. He's got 2 things. If you go back in the notes, the 5-force model we've just covered. What are the 3 strategies? We can go back and have a look. Right back here. Where was, well, no. Cost, leadership, differentiation, focus. And then he's got the Porter's 5-force model. So Porter has 2 things. Please remember that. Discuss 4 major types of information systems. I think that is relevant. TPS, MIS, HRMS, and so on. The IT job market is not really part of this course. You guys are studying accounting. I'm not going to waste your time with the IT job market, only in an accounting context. What I would like to know from you is, are there IT jobs for accountants? That is my lecturer question to my students. Do you feel there are IT jobs for accountants? And maybe provide an example. I'm going to pause there in the chat box, guys. Anybody have an example of that? In accounting. You guys bored?
Any answers? The programming of accounting systems. Mr. Aston. Data handling. Miss Peterson. Anybody else?
Okay.
You may speak, brother.
Okay, that's fine. It's just, it's quite a difficult thought, especially when you're sitting an exam. You don't want to spend too much time on what kind of accounting IT jobs there are. But for example, IT people who understand programming can go and develop a piece of software such as Sage Pastel. Now, believe it or not, you guys are going to study some programming next year called Visual Basic. It's a programming language. It's quite an old language. It's just one of them that you're going to learn to understand to help you actually possibly get into the job market and create accounting software. Educational backgrounds for an IT position. Yeah, no, I'm not going to worry about that. Just be aware of who these people are. CIO, I think you've all heard of it. Chief Information Officer, Manager of Information System Services, Systems Analyst, Network Administrator, Database Administrator, Computer Programmer, Webmaster. These are all going to be what? Employees in the IT job market. So we might ask you give us an example. At this level, we might ask you give us an example of what the jobs are in the IT market, and then possibly, potentially one for accounting in an accounting context, which would be a programmer that would develop software for Sage Pastel, for example, or even database software. Split the class into 5 groups, particular job in the information systems field. No, not relevant. Outlook for the future. We do have a question or two on this, but it is non-critical. I think what we are looking at here, students, hardware and software costs will continue to decline. Computer literacy will improve. Networking technology will improve. We know this. Internet growth will continue. There are many generic questions if you are asked about the future of information systems. There is quite a lot you can say there. I'm not going to highlight anything there. Some of the major computing trends that are already underway and should continue into the future outlined below. And yes, we would like you to know these. Ubiquitous computing. Ubiquitous is a word that means general. So ubiquitous computing we have already. It's everywhere. It's on your desktop. It's on your laptop. It's on your tablet. It's on your phone. It's on the ATM machine. It's wherever you go, there is computing. So computing devices are everywhere with different sizes, powers, and so on. 3D printing, I'm sure you've heard of. 4D printing. 4 dimensions. As your lecturer, I might be... Yes.
Sorry, sir. Can I quickly just ask a question to the students, which we actually didn't ask? Why do you choose, or did you choose accounting to study? What is your perception of accounting with regards to software, with regards to Excel formulas, with regards to the workspace one day? And also think about the 4th industrial revolution. So my question is, why did you choose to study accounting, if I may ask? Thank you, sir. You may speak up or you can text it in the box. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I can also mention another question there. Did you expect so much information systems in accounting and all of this 4IR and so on? Any answers there?
Guys, you may speak up. I think we're here for you. Don't be shy.
The question was, why did you choose accounting?
That's question number 1. It is way more than I expected, but I'm excited. No, that's all good, Tiffany. I definitely did not expect so much information systems in accounting.
Yeah, I think what's important to remember, you want to become a CA, good one, nice, very well paid job.
Fee, mas good. Is it you, chartered accountant?
There are endless opportunities, yes.
No, that is true.
Bookkeeper or CA is good. Nice answers, students. I think the one thing that came out here is you didn't expect as much information systems in accounting, but you must remember, when you become an accountant, you're not going to work with paper. I don't think you will ever see a piece of paper. You will only work on an information system of some kind that will be given to you, such as Sage Pastel or any of the other accounting systems. I keep mentioning Sage Pastel because you guys are going to be studying it next year. So I would like to focus on that. I love analyzing data. Nice one as well.
Chief Finance
is good. Guys, I hope you all become CAs. It's very well paid.
Accountant, big money students, our mutual, and our people, and we're looking at entry of about 80 to 90,000 a month. But it's work. You need to work hard.
90,000 a month. I can live with that.
Yes, sir.
Somebody gave me
That's
that.
sir.
A CA, to give you an example, a CA is not going to earn 90,000. A CA is going to earn maybe 150 per month.
There we go. I'm
And
talking
then a nice
entry.
one, a data analyst. There is a lot of work for data analysts. There's a shortage of them in the country. Okay, I think that's some very good answers to that question. Yeah, 150 per month if you get the right job in the right place as a chartered accountant. You could be a financial director or a chartered accountant. And yeah, what can you do with 150 per month? I think quite a lot there.
So after all your deductions, you will probably be 110 or 120 net. That's a lot of money, people.
Gave a long answer. Accountants make a difference. Yes.
Because accountants,
businesses, other organizations, accountants also provide expert advice on taxes. You're 100% correct. Financial planning. Yeah, you've got the good ideas there. And it seems that you understand the accounting context very well.
That's a very good answer.
Excellent answer. Thank you. BCA, Economics, Communications, Business Law. Yeah, law comes into it as well, which I'm sure you didn't expect. Okay, guys, to just jump back to the keynotes. 3D, 4D printing, what we are looking at major computing trends here. We're almost done with this unit 1. Pervasive analytics. Pervasive is an English word that means to stick around. So analysis that sticks around, or analysis that is pervasive, it is continually there. So it is analytics that is continually there. Cloud computing, I've already spoken about Amazon, who you can go and have a look at. That is a company that does this cloud computing. Now, just to elaborate a tiny bit on cloud computing, guys, because it's a word that you're going to hear so much, and it's something that I think you will be working with one day. Companies used to have what we called a server room with big powerful computers in it. Very expensive way of doing things. You have your own servers. Banks had their own servers. Small companies, big companies had servers to serve their employees, laptops and desktops, for example. That concept has fallen away now. What you do is you don't need to go and buy a server anymore and have it in a server room. You can rent it on what they call the cloud. Now, the cloud is nothing more than the internet or a type of internet. So your server will actually sit in the cloud. You will rent. You will say to them, I want to host a business intelligence system. And they will give you what they call a virtual server that you can use. And it is a lot cheaper than actually going and buying the hardware. You will get some companies that still use the hardware. It depends on security.
It is superior. No, she left it for you. Tomato. Huh? Tomato. Tomato soup. Yeah, lunch.
Somebody's microphone is on.
Oops, sorry. Is it me? Yes, man. Sorry, it's food. Lunchtime, I'm hungry.
You were talking about tomatoes. What's going on there?
I was referring to the 2-minute noodles, sir, with tomato soup.
Okay. What do you want to eat? Okay.
It was just lunchtime. Are you hungry, everybody?
I'm going to give
anyway, Sorry, guys, but anyways,
More
no,
people
we
thinking,
right.
this one is critical. You will get a question on that.
Okay.
Predictions
Accountability.
surrounding the future of information systems. One of them I have mentioned at the beginning of the lesson is artificial intelligence. And how is the role of humans going to evolve? They're going to become programmers, guys. Your key terms, I don't think I need to go through these. We've done it, and you can, all of them are relevant. Computer literacy, information literacy, business intelligence, a TPS, an MIS, data, database, a process which takes data and turns it into information. What is information? And then information technologies, Porter's 5-force model. And then there are some end of module questions here, which you guys may attempt. There's quite a few of them.
Sir, last question. Sorry. Students, I noticed something. I want to make money. I want to make money. I see here in the chat. But now my question is, with the fourth industrial revolution, what do you think is going to be one of the big changes happening in the near future? Cryptocurrency. Everybody heard of Bitcoin? Blockchain. Watch out for that, students. Thank you, sir.
In an economic sense, Mr. Pretorius, that's very interesting. In an economic sense, I read in the news this morning that China has introduced a new cryptocurrency. There is also a stock exchange genius on the New York Stock Exchange that is talking about another new cryptocurrency that is coming out, and you must invest in it, and you can make so much money in it, and so far and so forth. And I am looking at these cryptocurrencies. It's a very good investment these days. Yes, Ethereum has been around for a while, but there are some new ones. I think there are 2 or 3 new ones that are being proposed to be issued, and you can make a lot of money on them if you've got to invest. But the problem, I was going to invest in one of them, and the minimum they want is 200,000. Yo, I don't have that, so no chance of investing in that there. But cryptocurrencies are a very interesting one. Thank you, Mr. Pretorius.
No problem, sir.
Okay, students, I think what I'm going to do, we do have a module 2. I'm going to give you a break until, say, 20 past, and then I'm going to go through module 2 very quickly, because we touch again on module 2 in 3, 4, and 5. It kind of comprehends module 2 as well. So I won't be as long going through module 2. Stick around, hang in there, and if you've got any questions, please post them in the chat. So let's just take a 10-minute break, say 12:22. Everybody okay with that? Go get yourself a cup of coffee, tea, cool drink.
We see you back in 5 minutes, students. Okay.
Yes, me too. Me too. Okay, take a break.
Guys, didn't sign in the attendance. I'll copy it again over here on the break. Okay. And here we go. Guys, so far I know. Oh, yes, there's one thing. Accommodation, but we can talk about that. Group chat again. But we see you shortly for chapter 2. Just through the keys. All right. We're on a short break, Anna. Won't be long. We'll be back now in 2 minutes. Guys, sorry to this. Um, Communications on the tutor group. Someone told me that Mr. Dominic is not the group for G&H communications. So what I'll do, I will email Ian Johnson again and Dr. Jane to find out the right thing, and I will hear what they say, and then I can speak to you guys maybe later about it. I think it's group G&H or H or G or something like that. But okay, we're gonna start through now with chapter 2. This is interesting. It's actually last chapter, one of my favorites. We chat soon. All right. Oh yes, guys. One thing. The video's on recording. So when it comes to quarter past till about now 25 past, you might just fast forward the video. We start now with chapter 2. So in case people think the lesson is over, it's not. Once the recording is done. All right, so don't forget that. Okay, and let the other students as well, everybody know. Okay, guys. I think the smarts will be starting soon.
What I will do next time is I will open Notepad and I will do something like this.
Like a short break. There we go. Then students know, and leave your screen on share. I'll say, for example,
I'll do something like that next time. Then so that the students can just fast forward through the video there. My apologies, students, I should have done that.
no, not a problem, sir. We took breaks last year, students. So we were very under pressure. Now we timing it properly. Okay.
Okay, we're overdue to start, so let me continue. I know we've got another chapter. I'll try and be a lot simpler with this chapter. It is simpler in content. It is interesting, like Mr. Pretorius said, but it is far simpler in content. It's not as complex as chapter 1. One thing I want to mention, students, is why are we moving so fast? Why are we pushing so much work on you? The exam is coming on what, Mr. Pretorius, the 13th of April.
Yes, sir. Sorry. The 13th of April will be your April exam. So, and I quickly, sir. So next week we'll do chapter 3 and a bit of recap on chapter 1 again, unit 1. I'm referring to emails and submissions and all those things. And then we might write a class test to test your submissions and uploads and all those things in next week. Then we go on a short break from the 18th of March till the 28th of March. Then in the second week, we come back in April. We write first April exam of chapters 1, 2, and 3, what we're doing right now. And I will upload the assignment 1, which will be based on unit 1. And maybe chapter 1, 2, and 3 as well in there. So we're just giving you a breakdown of what's going to happen towards the end of this month, early next month. Okay, guys.
Okay, so we want to give time to recap as well, give you time to do the theory tests. We won't, this term is very pressured. Term 2 is a lot better. Term 3 is also a lot better, so is term 4. It's just term 1 with the late registrations. The second year started, I think, 3 weeks before us. So we're not given much time, and it's why we're moving at such a speed. Just hang in there, you will be fine. We had to do it last year as well. Okay, module 2. There are 9 learning objectives of these. I need to switch on my highlight. Let's choose a different color. What is the definition of a computer system? What is the history of computer hardware and software? That's an interesting one. I'm going to speak to you about ENIAC and things just now. How do we talk about the computing power of computers? Basic computer operations. This one is so easy. Input, output, and memory devices. You almost know it already. How we classify a computer and its business application. So that's 2 in 1 there. Software. We will just talk about software in a business setting, which we have already, so I'm not going to waste too much time with that. This one is really important. The 5 generations of computer languages. And then I'm not going to do object-oriented programming. That is a second year thing. Okay, going to move a bit quicker. The definition of a computer. We have done this, guys. It's a machine that accepts an input, it processes it, and it has an output. And earlier on, I mentioned GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So remember, your data that goes in needs to be processed, needs to be accurate and processed correctly in order to have a understandable and relevant and useful output. Otherwise, you're going to have garbage. So be aware of the rules called GIGO. There's lots of computer languages available. I'm not going to go further there. The components of a computer system, yes, you do need to learn this. The CPU. Now, please don't get this wrong. Many people refer to the box that sits on the table, the tower, as a CPU. That's not the CPU. The CPU is a chip that sits inside that tower. And I will open Google and let's just have a look at one quickly, just so that I can clarify that. Looks something like that. And it goes inside that tower. So that is actually your CPU. Your CPU is not the tower. This is the brain of the computer that goes inside that tower. And it looks something like that. Okay, so that is your central processing unit. Inside that is a arithmetic logic unit. We have something called a bus. Now, a bus is just what they are talking about. It is where information has to move around that computer. So it will move from the hard drive to the CPU, to the memory, the RAM. It will move to your flash drive. It will move to the screen. And it has to travel somehow. And there is a whole lot of what you can think of as wires next to each other, and that is called a bus. A bus is where information gets on, moves somewhere, and gets off. It is the link between devices. It's called a bus, and you just need to know it in that context. A disk drive is also inside the tower. The motherboard is inside the tower, so let's just Google those two quickly because it's nice to have pictures to remember. And it's actually called a hard disk drive, HDD. And there is a picture of one that will also go inside your tower. And then we have a computer motherboard that all of this plugs into. And they're quite complicated devices. They're made up of many, many layers, anything up to 23 layers in order to fit it all in. And that is what will go inside the tower. So that is what they are referring to there. Okay, that is your motherboard. The BIOS is what starts up the computer. It's a basic input-output system. The history or generations of computers start with 1. Okay, so you need to know the generations. You don't need to explain the generations. Again, that is not required at the moment. So you have first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and fifth generation, if I'm correct. There is a lot of very technical information here, but there are 5 generations. Let's move down a little bit. No. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I recommend you read that entire paragraph. Computers got smaller and smaller and smaller, and as they got smaller, they were called part of a new generation. Up to 4th generation computers. So generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, and generation 4. So that you guys can read. Very large scale integration is the tiny example of that is the tiny, tiny, tiny little microchips that are inside your cell phone. It's called very large scale integration. Everything got so small that we can have our tablets and our smartphones. So that is VLSI. It is making things much smaller. The CPU becomes tiny. Everything becomes tiny. Your smartphones and tablets all run on things called ARM processors, ARM, and they are a company that designs processors, and then anybody can manufacture them. It's an open license. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, this you need to know in basic. The power of computers. How do we specify how powerful a computer is? Its speed, and they've just given you some examples here. Up to picoseconds, what's that, trillionth of a second. It can execute an instruction and perform an instruction. An instruction could be arithmetic to add two numbers together, for example. So how do we classify the power of computers? How fast it is, how accurate it is, and they don't make mistakes. Computers, just end of the story, they do not make mistakes. People make mistakes. Computers don't make mistakes. If the computer made a mistake, the person putting the information in made a mistake. Storage and retrieval. How fast is your hard drive, and how fast can you get that information off your hard drive? Okay, the bits of zeros and ones and bits and bytes you can read on your own. No, I don't want data codes. How does a computer store data in its memory? Okay, it is in the text further up, and I actually just want to talk briefly about this question. You get two things that I want to explain to you about computers and memory. Just going to make my font a bit bigger here so that everybody can see. You may have heard of these things. Random access memory. And then we have the other primary one, which stands for read-only memory. Your computers have RAM in them, and if you are, for example, working on your assignment, part of your assignment is sitting in the computer RAM, and that is powered by electricity. So random access memory is exactly what it's talking about. Your computer can access it, little bits and pieces of it, as it needs. But if the power goes off, you lose that data. It is called volatile. So it is powered, and it is called volatile. What volatile means is that, I'm trying to think of English words that are similar to volatile. Explosive, changing all the time, not stable, can be changed. So there's a few English words there that we're talking about. Okay, read-only memory cannot be written to. It is non-volatile. That means it's permanent. In other words, it is a type of microchip you get that you will program only ever once, and it's permanent memory. Okay, let's have a look at one or two examples of these, because this is important stuff. So this is computer RAM, flash drive. No, flash drive is a new concept that I'll put down just now. Random access memory. Let's keep it simple as RAM for a computer. I'm not going to go further than that. Let's leave it as simple as that. ROM can be your basic input-output system. When you switch the on button on, there is a whole set of checks that happens. It goes to check, is the motherboard there? Is the hard drive there? Is the hard drive working? Is the RAM there? Is it working? Is the CPU there? Is it working? And so on. And that is called a BIOS, a basic input-output system. That process of checking that everything is there and moving to a higher and higher language is called bootstrapping. It's just a piece of extra information for you. What is a flash drive? Another example of this is a CDR or DVD-R. You write on it once, unless you've got a rewritable. There it is. You write on it once, it's written to you, it's non-volatile, and it's ROM. And you can't write over it. It's permanent. You would throw it away and you would write a new one. Then what is a flash drive? Last one I'm going to discuss. There's something called EEPROM. Now, EEPROM is what, for example, a flash drive, and what it stands for is electrically an example of this is a flash drive. Or an SD card. Just a brief explanation of that. We first had RAM and then we had ROM, and then as technology advanced, we came up with something called EEPROM, electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. So it's basically RAM and ROM mixed. So it is ROM until you erase it. Then it becomes EEPROM, and you can rewrite on it. So that is rewritable. I'm going to just put here rewritable. And it does not need electricity to persist, stay there. So you all know what a flash drive is there. There we go. Please be aware of these three different types of memory. There will be questions on them. It's in the slides. I've defined them and I've spoken a little bit about each of them. Computer operations. Okay, you need to know the tasks that it can compute. They do arithmetic, logic, and storage and retrieval.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
I have a question with
Sure.
regards to the memories that you just explained now.
Yes.
What kind of memory or Yes, memory would you classify an external hard drive?
External hard drive. Very good question. Let me have a think about that. That is EEPROM as well.
Oh, okay. Thank
Even
you.
though inside that thing it is mechanical, and there is a disk inside there that spins, they still use electricity to read and write to it. So that would be EEPROM.
Oh, okay. So
Does
thank
it?
you.
Does it? Okay, sure. Okay, other tasks that are performed, retrieval. They actually do there. They can add, subtract, multiply, divide, raise, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The ones I want you to know, guys, for the questions is the three basic tasks: arithmetic, logical, and storage retrieval. So that is arithmetic in the CPU, logical in the CPU, and storage retrieval from RAM or ROM or hard drive. What they can do, we know. Okay, this next section is very simple, and I'm going to go through it quite quickly. They are just talking about the input devices, output devices, memory devices. Now, before I scroll down, let me just talk about this. It is as simple as it sounds. An input device is a keyboard and a mouse, and your voice maybe. That's an input device. Output device would be your monitor or your screen or your display. And then your memory devices can be your flash drive or your hard drive or RAM. Okay, and then they give you now a long list of the different input, output, and memory devices. I'm not going to highlight it, but it is relevant, and you would need to be able to give me a few examples of each in an exam question. It would be an essay type question. You would be asked to explain input, output, and memory devices as an examination question. Input devices: keyboard, mouse, touch screen, light pen. It's a pen that works like a mouse. Trackball is like an upside down mouse. Data tablet, that is not the same as the tablet you know. It's an old thing that you don't get anymore. Barcode reader, optical character recognition, magnetic ink system, that's very old. Optic mark recognition. Do you know these QR codes you get, guys? That is an optical mark recognition system. So is a barcode, but a QR code is typical of an OMR system. Output devices is the LCD, the display, called a liquid crystal display. Printers.
Sorry.
Yes.
No, sir, sorry. My mic was on the bloody dog is barking. Sorry, someone at the door.
No problem. We didn't hear anything. I just heard your dog barking. So let's just have a look here. Liquid crystal display, the screen, inkjet and laser printers. Laser printers, you can just read about how it works there. Just be aware it exists. Memory device. Now they're looking at it in a new way. Main memory is usually volatile, and secondary memory is non-volatile. Now, don't let this confuse you guys. Main memory, secondary memory. Main memory is usually volatile, so that would be RAM, for example. Secondary memory, which is non-volatile. A hard drive is actually non-volatile. When you switch it off, it still keeps its information. So that's all that they're talking about. Main memory and secondary memory. Just be aware of those two. Main memory devices, RAM, cache RAM, secondary memory devices, magnetic disk. They're just talking about a hard disk here. It uses magnetism. Don't worry about optical disks. Don't worry about redundant array of independent disks. If you do want to know what that is, it is a collection of hard drives that you put together. So if you have 3 hard drives and the one breaks, you can just put a new one in and it will take information from the other 2 to rebuild the missing information on the broken hard drive. It's very cool. It's called striping with parity. You don't need to know that. I'm just explaining it to you as part of the class. But RAID is used in all kinds of servers, and they use 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 10 hard drives. And if one of them fails, you just pull it out, put a new one in, and the other hard drives will contain the missing information, and it will just recreate itself. So you can never, ever lose that information. They're talking about cloud storage here, which I've spoken about. You need to know these two exist at least. SAN and NAS. Okay, storage area network is networked hard drives. And yeah, it's a big box that you're going to put your hard drives in, and you're going to have another one in another room or another building, and they are networked together, but to the user, they look like one big hard drive. A storage area network is very similar. So they both basically do the same thing. Storage area network. Let's have a look if there is a difference. It's a dedicated high-speed network, and it uses hardware and software. The storage area network is available to servers on a LAN or a wide area network. Okay, so what is the difference between this? SAN is dedicated high speed. Works on a LAN or a WAN. Okay, they are very expensive. They're more economical. They look like one hard drive. Network attached storage, on the other hand, is a network connected computer. Let's keep it just like that. So storage area network is a high-speed network of hard drives together in a box, and network attached storage can be at the server sitting in your server room with a hard drive on it. The one is obviously going to be a lot more expensive and a lot faster. Servers are not very fast, they are slow. So obviously storage area network is the preferred choice if you have a large company. Then you can get hybrids and so on. I'm not going to worry about that. In-out devices, the summary, current trends, yeah, that you would know in your head. Laptops, tablets, they've got more memory. Classes of computers. Okay, let's shorten this now. Time is running out. Here we go. I'm going to highlight the whole lot and you guys can read. Okay. I don't know if you guys have heard of a mainframe. In fact, let me show you a picture of it. It's an old concept. It's not used anymore. And it just gives you an idea of how big computers used to be. So I'm just going to do a quick Google on that. Look how big that is. If you're standing there, your head would be about where my mouse is. So that is called a mainframe. It is a very, very large computer, and it could be made up of a whole lot of computers these days, even though that's what we call cluster computing. So it's not particularly that. They're also known, some of our supercomputers are also basically mainframes, and they are extremely large and extremely powerful. So that'll give you an example of what one looks like. Okay, and it is compatible 1965. They are pretty old there. Server platforms, that's the one that I just mentioned. Okay, so you need to associate server platform with the following: application servers, database servers, disk servers, fax servers, file servers, mail servers, print servers, remote access servers to connect from outside into your company, and web servers, of which we know there are so many out there. So you would need to be able to give us an example of at least maybe 5 of those. Okay, and what they're saying, what he's trying to tell you here is a server is not just a server. A server generally has a dedicated role and uses a dedicated piece of software. So another one that you get here, for example, is a security server or a firewall server, which will sit between your inside network and your internet, and it will protect your company from any specific activity, and it will surf the web on behalf of the people inside the company. So servers can have a specific role. What is software? Guys, you know what software is. It's the programs that run a computer system and run on a computer system. So it can be an operating system. I think this was a question last year. Microsoft Windows is an operating system. Microsoft Excel is an application. So we have software is divided into 2 categories: operating systems, which just operate the computer, and applications such as Excel, which you can work on. Operating system software, this is just for reading. Application software for reading, I've explained it. Spreadsheet software, you're going to get so familiar with that. Database software, presentation software, PowerPoint, I'm sure you've used that already. Graphics software, Adobe Photoshop. Desktop publishing software, Adobe InDesign, Quark Express. Desktop publishing is writing of newspapers and magazines. Financial planning and accounting software. This is relevant to you guys. I would want you to read all of this. Have a look here. Intuit, Quicken, that's 2 pieces of software. Financial planning software is more powerful than a spreadsheet. So that is where you are moving to in your 3rd year. Okay, they can handle a large amount of data. The analysis can be do, and all the things that you guys are going to do as accountants: present value, future value, rate of return, cash flow, depreciation, retirement planning, budgeting. And then they give you an example of Intuit Quicken. Using this package can do all of those things above. And then they say, in addition to spreadsheet software, you get dedicated accounting software. And there's one called QuickBooks. There's one called Sage, Pastel, he's mentioning one called Peachtree, which is another one. So Sage is the company, and they have a whole lot of different pieces of software. And these that you're going to use next year can do general ledgers, accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, balance, income statements. And you are going to be working with that next year. It's quite exciting. And it is online on the cloud. Project management software, I'm not going to worry too much about that. CAD, I'm not going to worry too much about that. Everything that is designed in the world today, they use software. They don't sit down with a paper and pen. They might at the beginning, but they actually use CAD software to design all the parts of your motor car and so on. Computer languages. I think what I want to know about this is also quite advanced. I want to know the generations of languages. Yeah, 5th generations, 5GLs, 4GLs, 2GLs. Okay. I'm going to highlight this whole thing and then I'm going to talk.
So just remember the time, eh? So we got about, say, quarter past
I'm
one.
almost done.
Okay.
I'm almost done. It's a very long lesson.
Just want to speak to the students about assessments and all those things. And so I can just show them maybe the April exam and where the class test is and formal,
Okay,
after the lesson.
I'll finish
Okay,
off
sir.
now. Okay,
Thank
just be
you.
aware that your languages went from 1st generation, which is something that spoke to the machine, to something called high-level languages, which is 5GL, 5th generation language, which includes artificial intelligence, the one I mentioned that you can speak to. Object-oriented, I don't want to look at. And then obviously we're finishing off now with our key terms, and you need to obviously know all of the key terms. What is a computer? What is a CPU? What is an ALU? What is a disk drive? There's the case, which we call the tower, the motherboard. We had a look at all of those. And then there's questions at the bottom of this. Mr. Pretorius, what did you want to have a look at on Blackboard?
Hi, sir. Thank you, man. Thank you for chapter 2. No, there was just a request of the students. So what is assessments? How do we do it? And where do we upload? So I would have done this next week, but if we can just quickly just show them on the left side, we scroll down to formal assessments. There, summative. A little bit up. There we go, summative. There, classes and assignment 1 and assignment 2. No, that's today, sir. That's the test. I want to show you about the April exam and the class test. That's practical, sir. That is for semester 2. Those are semester, so go one back. And a little bit down. There we are, there. Formal assessments. So inside here, students, you click on that. I'm talking now April exam. And there is your file. Inside that folder of April exam, you will download the question paper for theory, which will be on chapters 1, 2, and 3. Right. Once you finish everything, this is where you upload where Mr. Smuts is right now. So just go out again, sir. So you click on there. Inside the folder, you will find your exam.
So what you are saying, Mr. Pretorius, is you upload in the same place that you download, correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay. Students, please don't miss this one. I know you must be very tired by now. It's the last thing we're explaining. If you move your mouse over the heading, you get a hand. That is what you can click on. And here is where you submit. And an example would be to submit. So I download my exam. I click on April exam. The April exam will be there where I'm moving my mouse.
Yeah.
I will then download it. I will work on it. I will zip it together. And I will come back here to the same place that I downloaded. And there is it for you, assignment submission, in the same place that you downloaded it. So we've got assignment information and assignment submission, or exam information or exam submission. And how you would do it, you would click on browse your local files, go to wherever you kept it on my desktop. You would choose the file, you open, check very carefully if you don't want to get naught, that you are submitting the correct thing. That is now attached. And where is my submit button?
On the right hand side, there's that black button.
Oh, sorry, you're right
Scroll
on the
down.
bottom here. You click on submit. Now, students, it's not going to work for me because I'm a lecturer, but I'm going to click on submit anyway. You will get a green thing there that says success. After you get the green bar or the purple bar, it depends which browser you're using, but it must say there success. Otherwise, you have a problem. It can take up to 5 minutes. So sometimes you need to wait if your assignment is big while it uploads it to Blackboard. And how does it look on Blackboard to me? I think I better show you that as the very last thing as a lecture. Mr. Pretorius, does that cover it, that bit?
Yes, sir. Sir, teacher, something in the link right on top by frequently asked questions. If you click in there, one down, BCA 1, there we got orientation, up. There you go. If you click in there, students, and you scroll right down to number 9, how to submit and upload to Blackboard, very important. What Mr. Smuts just did now is basically inside here. So the steps on how to download your exam, you do the exam, you save your exam, you rename the Word document, we will do a demo, and that's where you upload.
There is a video there already of how to do it.
There's a video there too, so watch that video there by number 9, students. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, that's a point of contention each year, that one. And where your lecturer goes is he goes to something called Grade Center, which you guys don't have. So I'll go into my Grade Center. I will go into Mr. Smuts, Group H. And then your lecturer gets something that looks like this.
You see, there's no student registered yet. That's why for H.
There's no, yeah. Let me go into A. Go into
one of my ones, sir.
Sure.
There we go. Preto, that's me. Now you will see all the students now over there.
April exam. When you submit your April exam and you get that success, it will show you and show you and show you and show you. We get a little yellow circle we can download as lecturers. Students, also be aware, what happened to the last access, Eddie? There we go. The lecturer can see when you last accessed Blackboard. And this is looking very good. 2nd March, 2nd March, 2nd March, 2nd March. Excellent. There's one there that never accessed Blackboard, ever. There's a couple here in your A class, sir. 28 February. Where is the student today? Generally looking very good, guys. You're in class, you're here.
Yes.
It's looking good.
Everybody's available. Yes.
Yeah, everybody's around. Okay. I think we need to finish off. It's been a 2-hour lesson. It's not going to be like this every week. Okay, please be aware of that. I am going to do my level best to shorten it for next week Monday, and next week Wednesday we will do whatever we can to shorten the lesson. But thank you, students, for sticking with it and hanging around. It was a lot of information today that we went through, and I appreciate you being in class and being here to listen to the lesson, and I hope that you found the work interesting. Any homework is just going to be the theory tests. The questions that are in the notes is for your own purposes. Mr. Pretorius, anything, any last words?
Okay, Miss V, back to student. Any questions, guys? Are we good?
Just please post the register link again for the last time.
Sir, I just did that. One last time.
Okay.
Let me have a look quickly. Okay, 161 students. Very nice. 161 students. That's very good. Thank you, students.
Excellent. I assume some of them are going to watch the video later because they've been in class to get the link. Okay, students, that's it. Thank you for today. Thank you for attending. I promise you I'm going to make the classes shorter next week, and as short as we can possibly go. Today was just a very long lesson because it covered some very, very critical work. But thank you.
So don't worry, students.
Good afternoon and goodbye.
On my side, I will download the vid. So give me it takes a bit of time. Give me an hour, and I will upload it to Unit 2's link, and you will watch. You will have this video there. Okay, students. Bye-bye.
Okay,
you can leave, guys. You can leave.